Gloves here. I'm wearing a hat, and today we're going to be talking about typical uses of S-Layer. I use S-Layer for the generation of one-shot samples principally. So let's go ahead and really quick do some of that. So let's say that you have a particular sample folder that you really like, but you wish you had more of that kind of sample. For example, I have here Leviathan, Black Octopus Leviathan, and there's a whole bunch of impact sounds. And let's say that that wasn't doing it for me. I wanted some more, or let's just say I just want more for variety. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a new reactor, and then I'm also going to grab a S-Layer, of course. And I want to use S-Layer to generate new versions of this so that I have a wider variety to pick from. And its controlled randomization makes it excellent for this. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to get rid of the samples inside here. We talked about this in the loading your own samples in here video. So I'm going to grab these samples and open them, and bada bing, bada boom. Here they are, and just drag them on. Now this is kind of random anyways, so I don't care that I have space at the top or the bottom. I just treat that as part of the randomization. It's as if my mute knob is being just randomly muted for me without being randomized. Okay. Well, without randomizing that mute knob. So I've got those in there now. And let me really quick just check, make sure my root notes are all in order. So they are. And in order to generate some new cool timbres, it always varies on a case-by-case basis. So some things that I think would sound quite cool, I think that the granular engine would sound very cool on impacts. Right now, if I put it, it's only going to randomize samples. So it's essentially just going to come up with cool layers. But I have a whole bunch of other parameters that are active right now. So I'm going to go into the snapshots and go to basic. And over here, they have a whole bunch of excellent starting points that you can pick from. One-shot granular is the one I would usually, well, not usually. This is the one I would start with for something of this nature. Usually, I don't know. But I'm going to go to one-shot. But as you see here, they have a whole bunch of different really, I think they're well thought out snapshots. Like these are great. So I'm going to go to a one-shot though. And what I'm going to do now is turn on the granular engine. And if I play a note, and then I'm going to turn on random, so when I hit notes, it's randomized. It's just going to be a layering machine, basically. Now, let's go and randomize the granular engine, and I'm going to randomize the grain size and the playback. That's not the most useful sound, but you get the idea. We're getting places. So that's pretty cool. Now, something that I may want to change is the decay versus the sustain. So maybe I don't want the sustain. Maybe I want a somewhat long decay for these. I don't want to randomize this really. That way there's still like impacts. But you get some really, as you can see, some very cool textures. And depending on what you give it will determine what you get back. So you really want to be thoughtful about the stuff you put into here. For example, and what you randomize. So let's go into here. For example, I did some hi-hats. I did just loads and loads of one-shot hi-hats at one point. And I went in, and what you do is you record the output and then chop all the samples up. But you want to be careful about the randomization, because if you randomize things in a way that's not well thought out, you could create problems for yourself. For example, I could randomize the pitch here, and that'd be fine. But I probably don't want to randomize it by 2 octaves. Not fine. So maybe I want to go down at most of, in this case, probably like 5 semitones, and up maybe like 9. I can get away with going up a little bit more. And so I'm getting some pretty interesting sounds out. I don't want to mess with the offset. I definitely don't want to delay. But what I can do is I could bring this down quite substantially and then have it just sort of shift. Wow, I couldn't say that. Have it just shift through that itsy bitsy beginning part of the sample, the chiff, and let it go through there. I'm not really sure if you could call these ones chiffs, but you know, the start part of the sample. And that just gives me way more variety in the attack of the instrument. So I guess you could call this the chiff. And I'm going to leave the pan alone. And what I can now do is I think I'm getting some pretty varied outputs. If I wanted more movement, I could try messing with the effects, putting sequencers on the cutoff and resonance in the filter, even the filter modes, and really get some dynamic movement that is very random, but usefully random. This is way more useful than just straight up random. And what I can do now is I'll go in, I'll set this to a mixer track. I'll hit Control E, put an Edison on it. I'll record it on input. I prefer to do it actually through the FL's playlist recorder just because I'm really used to that. Edison's convenient and it gives you some editing options, which actually kind of makes it better in this case. I just think that I get more pops when I use Edison sometimes. So you want to be careful. And that's not an S layer thing. That's just recording with Edison because it loads more stuff into the memory. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes on. So if I'm going to be editing stuff pretty intensely later, I'd rather just record it to the playlist and then open it in an Edison. That's just my personal taste. Other people will be like, I have absolutely no problems with Edison. This is great for you. So now if I play some notes, and I want to record when you're doing this, you want to record the whole thing. And you want to do that because you want the natural decay. If you're getting stuff like that, though, you'll either edit that out, fade it out. You know, that's part of the editing process. So you get a whole bunch of stuff, and you pull it out and you see what you can use. Granted, a lot of it may not be worth very much depending on what you're doing. So you just got to be wise in that. And I think I'll get some pretty interesting results out of this. So I'm not going to save any of this, so don't bother asking. Just do something similar with your stuff. And if you're wondering, this is the Black Octopus Leviathan impact sounds. So if you want to do something like this, you need those sounds for these results. You might have your own impact sounds, or you can just make your own. So, okay, cool. That's really nifty. I've used this again for hi-hats, for snares, for kicks, just really cool ways of creating a large variety. And you can get very creative. You could even try making a sort of sequencer where you randomize the sample selection. Well, watch. So let's say that, oh, okay, I'm happy with the sound. Let's go to the next one and turn this off. And let's say that I want to hook this up to sequencer A. So now it's going to select sounds and it's going to select them, and we want it to select them 8 notes. And it suddenly is not making output noise. What did I do wrong? Did I solo? No. Mute? No. 56. Oh, I know what I'm doing wrong. Okay. This is why you got to know what things do. That way you can figure it out. So I've hooked it up to A. Our sample map doesn't have values up there. It's empty. And this is constantly maxing it out. So what we're going to need to do is simply just keep it down. So that's 8th notes. We probably want 4th notes, quarter notes. So you could use it as sort of a sequencer of sorts, and you could take advantage of its unique ability to randomize things. Yeah, we shouldn't have randomized that. I don't know why I did that. But you can, so anyways, you get the idea. You can do really nifty stuff through here. And some of these loop options in the various page take advantage of that. If you go into the down here, somewhere in here, they do that. I've seen it in here before. It's where I got the idea. I was like, well, that's a good idea. So you could try messing with the master decay. Be careful of your envelope settings if you're getting weird things popping up after. You may have your sustain could be the source of a lot of pains in that direction. Something else that's kind of cool with this, you could give it a bunch of tonal samples, make sure you've mapped them correctly, and you could play notes and use it as a kind of instrument generator. You could come up with a whole bunch of synths playing a whole bunch of different interesting notes, and then play the notes and then you play the key a bunch of times, getting a bunch of really interesting timbres, and you use that as the basis for your instrument if you're going to go into like Kontakt and map it out. A really, really interesting idea that you could try and just get some pretty dynamic results depending on the amount of prep you give it beforehand before you toss your samples in here. And the granular engine, I feel this thing's just incredible for getting some of that sort of feeling out of it. If you want just variation on samples, I mean, you only really need the parameters on the front page. Another note, when you record, I would avoid, if you're doing samples for production that are going to be edited, like such as hi-hat, kicks, snares, don't do verb or delay. because if you do that, it's good. Sometimes you're going to not want that. You're going to want a different verb. So you're going to want to do that in your track. So it's track specific. So you don't want to record that. That's not the best idea in the world. So anyways, yeah, that's generally what I use Slayer for, is a one-shot machine. But as you see, you could use it to generate things for instruments. You could come up with really interesting looping sequences. We didn't even get into the multi-app. That's because that's like, if you want to be really specific, or you found a sample maybe somewhere in your creative process that you're like, oh, I don't like what's happening there. And so you could go in and like fix that one sample individually from the rest, things of that nature, which those do come up. Like, it really does. So that's a really great option to have. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.